item is a audit results for an annual audit that we have, and with the Cox, they've been our auditors for a number of years, and they presented the annual report for the finance committee. We probably spent approximately close to 30 minutes on it, but everything looks very good. And there's very few recommendations. And Scott Evans is here today. He's going to make a shorter presentation unless board members want any more explanation on any item. The one item that we should be aware of is final 12. We met their attention, but we show the extraordinary income we have because of the water sales, and we probably can't expect that for next year. And if you take that out, and because of the drought in the last few years, we have been making positions, and this is money to help that doesn't continue, and we get back to normal years that should not continue. So that probably appropriate, Scott, if you'd like to take it from here.
Thank you, George. Like George says, my name is Scott Evans. I'm a partner with the accounting firm of Cox, Evans & Bradford. And we have the pleasure of doing the audit each year for AVEK. I believe everybody has a copy of the audit report in front of them. What I'd like to do is just kind of briefly highlight the pages, go through, and then just open up for any questions anybody may have, any specific questions or anything they want to ask about the finances. The audit report itself, 34 pages. The format is mandated by the state of California, so the water agencies, water districts are very similar from one agency or one district to another. It's also a very condensed format, so there's not a lot of detailed information in an audited financial statement. So therefore, it's not the best management tool from that standpoint, but it is the overall report card of the agency for the year from a fiscal standpoint. Therefore, the financial statement is, in this case, is at the fiscal year end, June 30, 2015. Page 1 and 2 of the audit report is the auditor's report, or sometimes known as the auditor's opinion. This is what we consider an unqualified opinion. There's no qualifications to the district's finances, or there's no exceptions. So this is the best report or opinion that an auditing firm can give the agency. So this is what we all strive to have on our audit report. So the district does have what they call a clean opinion for the last fiscal year. Pages 3 through 7 is the management discussion and analysis. It's the MDA. That is the agency's part of the audit report. That's similar to in a Fortune 500 audit report, would be similar to a report to shareholders. So this is the agency's information that's contained in the audit report, and this is the opportunity for the agency to spell out or highlight things they want the public to know what's going on in the audited financial statement. This is a relatively new report. It's been in about 4 or 5 years now. The actual financial statements of the district are really on pages 8 through 11. And on page 8 is the balance sheet of the agency, or the statement of net positions, they now call it. At June 30th, 2015, at the close of business, this shows the assets that are under the agency's control as far as the amount of cash available, receivables, the inventory on hand, and then the property, plant, and equipment, the facility cost for the agency at June 30th. At June 30th, 2015, the agency had approximately $429 million of assets under the director's control or oversight, so to speak. Also, at that point in time, in the assets, at June 30th, as you can see, the facilities of the agency represent 66% of the total assets of the agency. That is a historical cost, not replacement cost. So replacement cost, probably the value would be a whole lot higher from that standpoint. The district's cash investments is about 30% of the total assets, and the remaining 4% is made up of inventory, receivables, and then deposits. So that's kind of the breakdown percentage-wise of the assets under the district's control at June 30th. The next part of it is the liabilities. What obligation does the agency have at June 30th? As you can see from the financial statements, most of the debt is our COP debt, or the long-term debt, which is going to be paid off over the next about 25 years still on that debt. So the largest percentage of our obligations are long-term. Most of our short-term obligations only represent about 6% of the district's debt. And then the equity or the fund balance in the agency at the end of June 30th is about $277 million. That's kind of the reserves that's reserves, but a lot of that is invested in our facilities at June 30th. Our operating expenses were about 21, so we had an operating surplus for the year of about $1 million from an operational standpoint. Then we go down through property taxes, the other non-operating income and expenses for the year. We ended up with a surplus of about $4.8 million. Again, property tax revenues, looking at the chart, property tax revenues represent about 50% of the funding. Water sales at 42%, and the other revenues make up about 8% for the district revenues for the year. As George indicated, there's a little bit of misleading numbers as far as the format that they have on the financial statement when it gets to revenues. One of the things we need to look at is our irrigation and water sales are actually declining. Even though the 2015 revenues on the audited financial statement show $20 million worth of water sales or 22 of water and irrigation, there was a one-time $7.5 million water exchange contract entered into that was taken out or didn't occur this year. You can see that our water revenues are declining, and with no real growth in the Antelope Valley as far as building or property value increases, our property tax revenues are rather flat. So looking into the future, these are considerations for the agency that are looking at as far as future financing sources or other grants or things that they can obtain in order to maintain the level of service. Expenditures, state water contract make up about 42% of what the agency spends each year. Water treatment, 11%. Water purchases, about 8%. Those just kind of graphically show the breakdown of the expenses that are listed on the audit report on page 9. Page 10 and 11 are what's called the statement of cash flows. It just really shows where the revenues are generated, where the cash is coming into the agency, and where the expenditures are being made from a cash flow standpoint. It kind of shows what they call the sources and uses of cash, rather than lumping things into income and expenses. Pages 12 through 31 are the notes to the financial statements. It really gives a lot more in-depth information on what's on those pages 8 through 11 as far as details. Note 1 is just some general accounting principles, accounting concepts, and accounting notes for the agency. Note 2 talks about the agency's investments and their cash positions. Notes 3 talk about the facilities and equipment, and it shows the amount that was acquired this year. The district added almost $19 million worth of improvements to their facilities this year. And then the rest just go on and talks about the debt obligations and other obligations of the agencies. The report card kind of the agency also is on page 32. It's the budget that was established before the July 1 of 14 for the fiscal year, and then this compares the actual numbers for 2015 based on the budget that was done at the beginning of the year, and just gives them kind of a report card on where did we end up with what we anticipated coming in for the year. And then the last 2 pages of the report, page 33 and 34, is our report on internal controls. One of the items we do as auditors is make sure that there are procedures and there are policies in place to help the agency safeguard their assets, and that their accounting controls over those assets, that they're in place and they're functioning properly. And that we had absolutely no findings this year on the internal controls or anything else this year. And so it was actually a very clean, very good report. Questions?
Increase the reliability for the agency, get more water into the Antelope Valley, and increase our reliability. State Water Project is notoriously unreliable, so we need to do things to kind of beef up that reliability. We also want to maximize our wet year deliveries. We want to get as much water when it's available into the Antelope Valley. We want to make the most of our allocation. We are the third largest contractor. We have 144,844 in our Table A, and a lot of times we don't get anything close to that. Even if we had a good year, we don't utilize that. So this is an opportunity to make the most of our allocation from the State Water Project. If we don't use that, what happens is it gets carried over to the next year, and then if we still don't use it in the next year, then it kind of goes into the pot and gets reallocated to all the other contractors. And so we get our 3.5% of that goes back into the pot. So it's in our best interest to utilize water when it's available. We want to develop a storage and exchange partnership with Metropolitan. They've done a lot of storage and exchange programs throughout the state and in the State Water Project. They are good partners. We've been working with them for quite some time to kind of develop this program, anticipating the wet year this year. Another purpose is it'll provide a financial benefit to the agency and its customers and taxpayers. So there will be a financial benefit. Just to give you a little background on the history of this agreement, as I said, we've been working on this for quite a while with Metropolitan. I briefed the board in April, just kind of at a high level conceptual approach. The board assigned it to the Finance Committee. We kind of kept it on the agenda so it stays on the front burner, and we keep moving because we wanted to have this in place by the time it starts getting wet. So we kept it on the agenda, briefed the Finance Committee on the details in September, and then again yesterday at Finance Committee. The term sheet is in your board package, and you can see that term sheet is actually what Metropolitan used to go to their committee. Metropolitan has, they went through their committee process, and they went to their board today. Their board is approved in concept and given their general manager the authority to sign a contract with AVEK under these concepts, and they've budgeted $16 million for the program. So kind of to get into the elements of the agreement, as I mentioned, this is a storage agreement and an exchange agreement. The storage agreement aspect is kind of a classic storage program that a lot of contractors do in the State Water Project, and we participated in. It's 10 years to get water in. What you would do is have Metropolitan take their Table A now. If they had excess Table A, they would take that and recharge it here in the Antelope Valley. This is a pretty friendly agreement because it's a mutual agreement. If they say, yeah, we've got some water, AVEK, would you like to take it? So both boards have to say, yeah, this works for us this year at this time. So Metropolitan needs to have the water available. They talked to AVEK, and the AVEK board said, yeah, we can take the water. If we have anything else going on that might interfere, if we have our own storage program, if we've got customers that we're storing water for, or if we have any other kind of exchange program that might be more attractive, we could do those first. We're not obligated to do anything on this. So it's kind of a first step to building a relationship with Metropolitan. There isn't really a forcing function on either side. But Metropolitan will make up to 30,000 acre-feet available in the next 10 years. AVEK would take that water, recharge it in the basin. We would retain 10% for the basin benefit, and then in some future year, then Metropolitan would ask for the water back, and they'd pay us $300 an acre-foot when it gets returned. If the extraction costs are higher, like if we have them reach, let's say next year's a wet year, They say, hey, let's do 30,000 acre feet, and it works for us. We put 30,000 acre feet in the ground. We retain 10%, and they pay to get it to our turnout, so it doesn't cost AVEK anything up front. We recharge it, and then the next year they say, hey, we want to get water out of the ground. And we say, well, extraction costs are higher than that. They say, well, we'll pay whatever the extraction costs are to get it out of the ground and get it back to the aquifer. Because they want it in the east branch, because then it goes down to the east side of their service area, and it's attractive to them because in dry years with low allocations, they can't get Colorado River water to the east branch section of their service area. So this is a good program for them. So again, they would pay us $300 when the water is returned. Next part is the exchange aspect. So that was the storage part, where if they have additional water available and they want to recharge it. And these are not exclusive. There's 30,000 on both sides of this deal. So it's 30,000 in storage and 30,000 in exchange. So the storage part is 30,000 in Metropolitan's water. They can recharge it here. Now this is the exchange aspect. And again, at AVEK's discretion, let's say we have 30,000 acre feet that we're going to carry into San Luis. Let's say we have an 80% year this year, and we have a lot of table A. We've got all the recharge we've got going locally that we need or want or can afford. We can say, we'll loan you this water. So basically, Metropolitan would take our unused table A allocation. And what they would do is called an unbalanced exchange. It's similar to what we did with Irvine Ranch in 2011, where you have a really wet year, we have water that's available in San Luis, and it doesn't cost us anything. We'll give you 2 acre foot, and you give us an acre foot back in a future year. The advantage of this one over the Irvine Ranch one was that Metropolitan is going to take half of the water, the first acre foot, and they're going to pay us what is called the multi-year pool price plus 1.5. Well, it's 1.5 times the multi-year pool price. The multi-year pool was established by state water contractors to have an opportunity for contractors to do this very thing. And they went through this whole process of establishing prices, and that's in your package too. That's that scale. And if it's a really wet year, then, contractors go, well, the water's, you're going to lose that water anyway, so I'm going to pay you $38 an acre foot for that water. If it's a really wet year, 100% allocation. If it's a 5% year, like last year, and they take that water, like if AVEK has some additional table A, and you take it and it's a 5% year, and we hope we never go there again, but then it would be $587. So there's a sliding scale depending on what the allocation on the state water project is. So again, this is the exchange part, 30,000 acre feet. It's AVEK water that we wouldn't utilize, don't want to utilize locally. We can basically give them 30,000 acre feet. They pay us this on this sliding scale for 15,000 of it that they keep. Then they return the other 15,000. And they return that other 15,000 to us, and they pay $300 an acre foot when they return it to us. Now the return, when we loan it to them, it's kind of, again, when it works for them and it works for us. But if they return it, and it's kind of at Met's discretion, they say, oh, let's get this off the books, let's pay AVEK back the water that we borrowed from them, the 15,000, let's pay them the 300 acre feet, or $300 an acre foot, then we get the $300. If we get into a dry year, and we say, hey, Met, we need that water back now. They say, okay, well, we'll pay you back, because what we were concerned about is that worst case scenario, we loan them water, and then in a dry year, we need that water back locally. We can get that water back, but we don't get the $300. But we get paid for the water that they keep, and we get paid for the water that they return. On the storage part, 30,000 acre feet opportunity for storage, and they pay us $300 an acre foot for each acre foot that we store, and we keep 10%.
This is truly a win-win situation, and potentially financially very lucrative to the agency. And we're lucky we have such a nice state water contract, 140,000 plus acre feet. Gives a lot of latitude to a lot of agencies. Just don't have. So, Mr. President, I would move the board approves the conceptual proposal exchange between AVEK and the water district, and allows the general manager to negotiate terms and the final approval for the board.
We have a motion second. Is there any more discussion or questions?
I just want to commend you, Dion, on putting this together. Anything we can do to increase reliability to our customers and to our people in the valley is a great thing. And I appreciate your hard work on this.
Any more comments?
I have, yeah, you can't hear me?
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good, okay. We spent a lot of time on this, I mean, months on this with Dan. And one of the biggest concerns I have that we're gonna be discussing soon is if you look at the regulated ops report or audit, 45% of our revenue is coming from water sales. We got serious issues with that because District 40 normally takes 40 to 60,000, and they don't turn open for, was it 35,000? Is that what I heard yesterday?
Yeah, they're tracking.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me, Frank? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, yesterday
Yeah, I can hear you.
we were looking at their numbers. So far, they've taken 18,000, I think it was, for this year, and so there's November and December ahead, but they're tracking a little, well, they're tracking about 3,000 acre feet behind what they took last year.
Okay, you missed, how much is the order they're putting in? I was told that yesterday at the meeting, it was 30 or 35,000 acre feet of water, because the orders go in now. We're already done with this year.
Yeah, I apologize. Yeah, Mike has given me a signal. Well, I'm getting several signals. It's 35, or it's 34 to 35,000. So you're right.
Is that 2015 order?
That's 2016.
2000, okay, thank you.
Anyway,
So you're right, Frank. It's for 2016. It's 34 to 35,000 for LA County Water.
About the only status update that I have right now is we had the expo on Saturday. We had more people there than we had last year. It's continuing to grow. Comments we got back were favorable from the people who were there participating. Comments were favorable from the vendors that were there that were showing their services and their wares, and they were very happy with it. So I would say it was a success. So we will have a value. We'll set up an evaluation here shortly so we can figure out what we want to do about it going forward.
Good. When did you see what status was? Haven't heard yet, but I expect it shortly.
Our plan is to actually go out for applicants and close the search on January 11th. That's also, so as quickly as we possibly can, Mr. President. And at this time, I would move approval of board order 6310. Any more discussion or questions? Roll call vote, please.
Shelley Sourcewell?
Yes.
Keith Duff?
Whether we have a special board meeting or at least some type of board meeting to discuss a transition period, what we'd like to do with management for the transition period. Because if we're not gonna have apps till January 1st, there could be a good chance that somebody we may look at may not be able to take the job until the end of the fiscal year, or at least 2 months or 3 months after we've selected them. We may have, several months that we can figure out how we're going to operate. I think there's a lot of options out there. That's why I think I'd love to see that discussed at the board level or on a personal committee level or whatever. So that's just food for thought.
Sure.
picture probably reflects what the canal looks like now, rather than the one that showed the last board meeting, because we did get the canal back on the weekend. Did some flushing flows over the weekend, and then we actually started operating the plant Monday. So that's good news. They really were responsive, got it back ahead of schedule. Water supply, Northern California's been getting a couple of storms. We're off to a decent start, but we need about 6 or 8 more of these kind of storms. Northern California is now at 69% for this date. Again, the initial allocation from the Department of Water Resources should come out December 1st. Oroville's at 46% of historical average, and San Luis is at 33%, which is slightly lower than last quarter. So they still haven't reached the bottom of the system. Here is the 8-station index showing Northern California, Northern Sierra precipitation. You can see the little blue line down there at the bottom. Got 3.5 inches so far, so 69% of average for this date. So off to a okay start. Like I say, there's a long way to go. Again, this is the precipitation probability for the next 3 months. This was actually made in October, but you can see that it's like Southern California and Central California are going to be above average as far as precipitation. This is reservoir conditions. Again, Oroville at 46%, San Luis at 33%. Yeah, Folsom is really good, and so is New Melones. I drove over New Melones, it's crazy. Really. Here is Oroville. Again, haven't quite reached the low point yet. Again, at these levels, all they're doing is releasing water for fish and for downstream water right holders. Actually, downstream water right holders kind of taper off this time of year, so most of that's just fish releases. But they did get a couple of storms. I've heard that there's like 30 inches at Mammoth. There's a good foot or so at Tahoe, so we get a little bit of a snowpack. And here's Oroville. Again, a little better than where we were at this time last year, but still a lot of that dark blue that the department is carryover for us. We do have about 4,000. We're looking at probably about 4,000 carryover if we extrapolate what we've got so far this year. Operations, again, Quartz Hill is back online. Customers are getting water. There was a lot of cooperation, a lot of good work on operations. And our staff, Roseman Community Services District, Palmdale Water, the county, everybody really worked together. Quartz Hill, everybody really worked together to get through this. So it was a real great deal of cooperation. Quartz Hill is back on it at 10 MGD. Roseman's at 2.5, was a little lower. Demands are dropping off a little bit. East side is 1 MGD. Our Palmdale connection is off right now. Water bank extractions, east side pump in, we're off right now, kind of more for operational reasons than anything. We do have the 96th Street started back up. That was off while the canal was down, but we've got that going back up. And the west side we're extracting 10 MGD. John, any other highlights?
Dan, when do we expect the east side pumping to be?
Yeah, next week we should have next week back on again.
Did the latest storm that we had,
To recharge our groundwater basin. So it's kind of a long-term benefit, but
do we know to what degree? Or is it looking at it?
that'd be kind of hard to measure.
It's a lot of rain.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of mud. Water banking again, 96th Street pumping is back on. The west side extractions are going to 80th and H. And water quality, as I mentioned, kind of let the canal flow for a couple of days to get all that mud and algae and so forth kind of move downstream. We're doing THM compliance samples next week, and we're going to be doing a few in-house tests for THMs this week. State Water Project, again, Aqueduct's back online. Had the operations workshop last week. And this is where they sit down with all the contractors, talk about the plan for the next year. Again, the initial allocation is based on what they have in storage and a very conservative hydrology. So it's likely to be low because reservoirs are pretty low right now. They might be optimistic because the climatologist for the department was pretty optimistic. He thinks this El Nino is really going to develop and actually produce some storms this year. We do have, we've kind of alerted the board to some issues we've had on the home turnout. When we work on turnouts, we put a design together, we bring it to this board, you sign off on it. I think on this particular turnout, I think it was like in April, March or April, the board signed off on it, I signed off on it, the department signed off on it. You start working on it, and they keep making changes. And some of the changes on this one have gotten very expensive. We did meet with the department. We had you go through all the steps. You have initial construction meetings, you have 20 people there, you have ongoing construction meetings. When they went to us and said, hey, you put that in the wrong place and you got to tear that out and put it over here, that's when we said, wait a minute, that wasn't on the drawings, that's a change. We went up and talked to the department and said, this isn't a very good process. We're going to be following up with the department on this one. I think it's probably going to get we're going to bump up the chain a little bit because they're asking for every project you do. You always have something on the ground that changes, and you expect that. But the department shouldn't expect our customers, Tom Ranch, or any of our customers, to pay for the changes that they come up with later in the process. So that's kind of what the discussion is about. Ben, you want to comment on that?
Well, other than the contractors back out working, this is all change order work, getting the pipe into the home management property. Also bring the conduit underground, and DNR wants some code change, whole, and again, it's all change order work. So, we're going to test the pump, start up with the standby generator, so we can get power. We don't know what we're going to actually power to. That way, that'll get all the work done by the contractor, we can get out of there.